What's up, my fellow scruffy looking nerf herders, and welcome to the Carbonite Chat. Today I'm going to be talking about the Lucasfilm story group and why they are a problem. I'm going to go through each one of the people. It was very hard to figure out exactly who was in the story group. If you look at different times, there's different titles for different people that were listed in the Star Wars story group. So to be able to solve it, there's like 11 people listed on Wikipedia. And instead of just following along with that, I went and checked the credits of the last movie, The Last Jedi, where it actually just listed Rain Roberts, Pablo Hidalgo, Matt Martin, and Steve Blank. But then I also went and looked at the most recent Star Wars show episode where they talk about who's on the story group. It was detailing some of the secrets from the Last Jedi movie. And that one added Leland Chee. So we now have 5 people. Now, if you look at Wikipedia and if you look at some of the other things, like in 2015 when they started to mention the story group, 2 of the people that talked a lot, especially at Star Wars Celebration, was Kiri Hart and Carrie Beck. Now, Carrie Beck is no longer part of the Lucasfilm story group because she has been moved to Vice President of Animation, and she's particularly working as an executive producer over the Forces of Destiny series. Kiri Hart, on the other hand, has been kind of promoted up to, I believe, like number 3 right now in the entire like Lucasfilm company. So neither one of them are really a part of the story team, and particularly using the details that I just gave about showing the Star Wars show bringing on the story team, and then also from what was listed at the end of The Last Jedi. Now, there are a few more people that were mentioned at this most recent Star Wars celebration in Orlando. I will cover them at the end of it. There are 2 other members that were at the celebration at Orlando, but were not listed in either one of those. But again, as I said, I will cover those at the end. My question here that I'm going to begin to kind of detail as I explain the problem, the conflict of this issue, is that if you're developing a story group and your whole concept, your idea that you have going into this is I need to create a group of people who can tell a cohesive story over a long period of time, much like Marvel's been able to do. I need to get some people that really understand how to tell stories. That would be the most logical thing that you do. Would you not, if you're starting some kind of medical thing, would you not try to bring in a lot of people that have been in the medical field for a long period of time? It seems logical to me. The irony of all of this, as you'll begin to see as we go on, but just to show that they don't even believe in their story group as storytellers, at the Star Wars Celebration Europe panel, they ended up having a panel called The Art of Storytelling. And I was going to watch it to prepare for this video. And I was like, great, I'm going to have to watch an hour-long video about these people talking about storytelling, but let's do it for the video. And then they called out all the names of who was going to be on the panel. And how many people do you think from the Star Wars story group was on the Art of Storytelling panel for Star Wars Celebration? If you think that the answer is 0, then you were correct. If you guessed any number above 0, you would be wrong. They didn't put a single person from the story group on the storytelling panel. They realized that these people can't sit up in front of anybody and talk about story for any period of time because you all realize that, spoiler alert, they have no writing credits out of any of them. It's just, again, spoiler alert, Pablo has written visual dictionaries and compiled, writing character synopsis for, even before he got to Lucasfilm, he wrote it for West End Games. But there's no creative writing that's going on with this group. But anyways, the first one of this group is Rain Roberts. Now, if you look at her IMDb, she has one job that she did, that she was a co-producer or associate producer of a small documentary. It was very small, didn't even have ratings on it. So I imagine it was probably more like around kind of like a fan film, basically, more than anything else. She also was an assistant to the co-producer Brad Kessel on 2 movies. Now you might think, oh, well, there you go. She's just like Kathleen Kennedy. She just was an assistant to people for a really long time. Difference is despite whether or not Kathleen Kennedy is qualified for her job, this woman Rain Roberts didn't work under Steven Spielberg. She worked under Brad Kessel. Now, the two movies she worked under with Brad Kessel was The Haunting of Connecticut 2, The Ghosts of Georgia. And that gem, that beautiful movie, did 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. She also worked with him on Life as We Know It, a beautiful, beautiful another film. If you haven't seen it, it's quite a hilarious romp. It made 29%. So this was a highlight of their career. And in case you're wondering, like, well, maybe this is just a really, really good producer that just had two bad movies. But she learned a lot because she was underneath him, and she learned a lot. I mean, a lot of people have really bad movies. And there's been some really good directors that have just thrown bombs out there. Even Ridley Scott's had some bombs. So if you look at the other two movies that Brad Kessel's done, because he's only done 4 movies in total, the other one is, of course, The Haunting of Connecticut. The first one, which actually did worse than the second one, so I don't know how it got made again. But the first one did 16%. And then his best, highest rated film that he's ever done, The New Daughter, did 33%. So she was the assistant to this man that has over 4 movies an average Rotten Tomatoes rating of 24%. Also, those are assistant to a co-producer, not assistant to a writer. She's not written anything herself. So why is she on the story team? Why is she one of the main members of the story team? I believe she heads up the story team, actually. I believe she's like an executive producer of. There's a recent she's the one that came up with the idea, in case you're wondering, that she came up with the idea that maybe the whole Force Awakens story should be about getting to Luke. Let's just not have Luke in it. Let's make him the MacGuffin. You know, let's make him where everybody's trying to get to. So that's, you know, she's the brilliant mind that came up with that. Next, we have Leland Chee, the keeper of the Holocron, everyone knows, but does he have any storytelling history? No, he was a game tester. He didn't really write any stories. He hasn't. But we'll give it a pass. Out of 5 people, there's, one person that I can agree with. That's kind of the guy that makes sure everything is focused on and everything's solid and nothing's kind of going anywhere. That we're keeping it perfectly straight. Next, we go to Pablo Hidalgo, who does have some writing credits, but his writing credits are all basically doing dictionaries and visual dictionaries and source materials, but not really any creative writing or storytelling or creating in any real way, shape, or form. So again, I'm wondering where are these storytellers? Next is Matt Martin, who actually has a little bit of a past. Of course, it has nothing to do with storytelling or writing or doing movies or anything like that, but he did start a small recording studio when he was in high school, or recording label, in high school. So that probably transfers over pretty well to storytelling, I would imagine, to do that. He was even kind of mocked for his degree on his StarWars.com article written about who he is and what he does. So even they mocked the fact that he's even got the degree that he's got, and then he has no storytelling at all. He's never written anything in his life. So how is he a member of the story team? And finally, we have Steve Blank. And to kind of cut this short, no credits at all. Nothing. He didn't do anything. Hasn't done anything. Good luck trying to find anything on him. I mean, he has nothing. So this is our story team. Now, in case you've kind of done some further research and looked into some different things, the basis of the story group came out of the video games from the Old Republic. It had the listing at the end called the story group, but the vast majority of that story group listed are not here anymore. That being Diana Williams, who was helping out with animation mainly, but is now in ILM's labs, the new kind of development they're creating. She's working there, so she's no longer a part of the story team. And then the other one that I mentioned before was Carrie Beck. Now the other person that has not been mentioned is Josh Rhimes. Now he was not in the video that I talked about earlier from the Star Wars show where they brought on the story team to discuss The Last Jedi. He was also not listed at the end of the credits with The Last Jedi. Now this is, from what I've been able to find, because he focuses only on animation. Now to his credit, he does have one story or one episode of a TV show that he's written for Stranger Adventures. He was also an executive producer or a producer on BoJack Horseman, which is a fairly highly rated animated TV show. So that's great. But most people's complaints so far has not been about animation. It's the only thing that most people have kind of liked, or at least felt like it's as close to Star Wars as we've gotten out of this whole new Disney Lucasfilm. So here's my question. If you were given, or if you purchased something for $4 billion and you wanted to try to make that money back, what would you do? Would you hire a bunch of people that have never written anything to be the story group for your company that's trying to gain back this money by telling stories? Very important stories. You're Disney. You have access to endless amounts of authors and writers, particularly, in my mind, what I would have done, and I think most people would agree. Why would you not why is Dave Filoni not on the story group to begin with? I mean, that's just crazy in and of itself. But why would you not pick out 3 or 4 of the best authors that wrote these books that you have now cast out and said they're no longer canon? Why don't you bring them in? It would have made the fans a lot more comfortable. It would have made a lot of the people that were angry about you casting this out and saying it's no longer canon if you would have brought on some of these people like Timothy Zahn. And you would have said, okay, we're chopping y'all's books out, but we want to bring you in to kind of help piece it all back together. We're going to take it apart, but then we're going to piece it back together. We're going to adjust some things. We're going to use some things that are really important. And we're going to get some great writers who love Star Wars and who know how to tell a story. I mean, to me, that's kind of the main thing. I mean, bring in someone like Claudia Gray. Christy Golden has done really well as well. She wrote The Dark Disciple, and I love that book. But instead, we have these people. We have a high school musician. We have a guy that likes to play video games. Like, that's great. Pablo Hidalgo and Leland Chee know a ton about Star Wars. They are mental encyclopedias, and you need someone like that on a story group. I'm fine with that. But that's 1 out of 5. That's 20%. The rest of them need to all be storytellers, all be writers. That's how you create a story group. Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I'm the one that's just insane. I don't know. But to me, that makes perfect sense. If I was, as I mentioned before, if I was putting together a hospital, I think I would try to put in some people that have some experience. And if you're purchasing a company for $4 billion, why not put a decent amount of money in trying to make sure that you can get someone that's a writer or some very talented screenwriters to come in to be kind of heading up your story team? Could they not afford someone like a Timothy Zahn? I mean, I imagine that Disney could probably, make sure to pay him enough to take up for his time. Or make a deal where, okay, you're still able to write this many books per year, but this is your main job. Anyways, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on those down below, but I just kind of started to think about this, and I wanted to do some research on it because obviously there's some storytelling issues going on right now, and that's kind of the most important thing, is the story. Not all these other aspects that everyone tries to bring up. It's the story that's failing. And it's piecing it together, and it's making sense of the characters being like they've always been. And telling a story that is a Star Wars story. And to me, it seems unexplainable why this is the story group and this is the team put together. But I look forward to hearing all of your thoughts down below and discussing them with you. As always, thank you very much for watching, and never forget, you Nerf Herders, I love you.